While heritage is very fickle, if not preserved, it vanishes. Influence of time and erosion of memory often dims the richness of the past. Stable and confident societies take measures to safeguard its history, and protecting it remains a top priority for any government. But across the world, there is a big smuggling racket that procures antique artifacts from one country and sells it in another. The illicit business thrives on the lack of security and resources in culturally rich but economically struggling societies. Experts estimate that hundreds of historic relics go missing from India to land up in the hands of wealthy private collectors in the West. Sometimes an odd one here and there gets caught by the security agencies, which brings us to the instance of the lady with the parrot who was caught in Canada.
12,000 kilometers from India, there is a lady and her parrot waiting to return home. She can't because there is a crisis over her identity. This is the only picture that we have of the lady with the parrot, a 12th century sculpture believed to have been stolen and smuggled out of India. The Canadian Customs Department had seized the sculpture 4 years ago, but for it to be sent back to India, theft has to be established. Despite the Ministry of External Affairs intervention, Indian authorities have been unable to identify the thief or even the point of theft of this idol. A series of letters have been the MEA, Archaeologist Survey of India, UNESCO, Canadian government and the CBI trying to identify the lady.
No, there is a lot of our heritage and especially old artifacts, sculptures and many other precious items of cultural heritage of our country which are outside of India. And I'm sure the government should make every effort to bring these items back.
There is a temple in Belur, Karnataka, where there are idols which resemble the lady with the parrot. Art historians say while it is difficult to say from where this particular idol may have been stolen from, it also resembles sculptures found in Madhya Pradesh.
At the outset, I have to say these are not high quality pictures. These are photocopies. And one can't be absolutely accurate on the basis of photocopies.
The Archaeological Survey of India on its part believes that the idol could have been stolen from a site not protected either by ASI or the state government. The CBI, meanwhile, is still leaving no stone unturned to get to the bottom of the mystery.
While with the lady with the parrot, investigating agencies in India hit a wall. Not because it cannot be established that the lady is from India, but because no one reported the stolen goods. And the logical as well as legal hurdle to that is, if nothing has been stolen, nothing can be returned. And this is the dilemma that is often faced if there is no record of an antique to begin with.
The lady with the parrot refuses to come home and time seems to be running out. Canadian authorities have reportedly informed India that without proof of its theft, they would not be able to hold on to the idol. It would have to be returned to the persons from whom it had been seized if no theft can be established.
We met senior ASI officials to find out why it's taking them extraordinary time for the retrieval of parrot lady lying in Canada. The officials say, as per the UNESCO convention, they need to supply FIR and other police documents to claim the ownership of the antiques.
With thousands of monuments, temples and historical structures outside the purview of the ASI's domain, it is never easy to identify missing artifacts. Also, the pressure on the policing system makes it impractical to investigate the disappearance of heritage items. In some cases, the ASI finds it hard to get the police to even register complaints of theft. Adding to the problem are innumerable artifacts that were removed during the days of the British Raj. A lot of antiques were also lost between 1972 and 1975 when India was in the process of implementing measures to check the smuggling.
According to the sources in ASI, a major cause of smuggling out of antiques is lack of knowledge among police and customs officials to confiscate these items. ASI officials have been attached to some exit points, but they are unable to check each and every item in the containers which are exported. Clearly, there is a need for mass training in antiquity among police and customs officials.
Eminent art historians believe that there is a need to impart training amongst police and other prosecuting agencies to sensitize them to the theft of history.
How many members of the police are actually trained art historians? Is there a member in the investigative cell who looks after sculptures and artworks? Does he have training in Indian art? Are there civil servants who have training in Indian art? Because otherwise it falls only upon the Archaeological Survey of India to answer these questions and to be the consulting body for the government to be able to answer these questions.
But the immediate problem at hand is what to do about the lady with the parrot who is waiting in faraway Canada, waiting for the Indian authorities to come up with some facts and do it fast.
The government's move to bring back unaccounted money is a very good step, but it is equally important to ensure that all the heritage and cultural properties lying in various countries be also brought back. Canadian laws require that the claim to get back these idols have to be made in a time frame, or else they will be returned to the person from whom they have been impounded. Therefore, the investigative agencies are racing against time to probe this matter.
While ignorance is bliss for a system that chooses to live in denial, the problem is deep-rooted. Where do you search for solutions when the designated custodians and guardians do not maintain a basic database of antiquities in their possession? The lack of knowledge, inadequate documentation and archaic policies, they've all given theft and smuggling just the impetus it needs to thrive on.
In 2013, CAG submitted a performance audit and conservation of monuments and antiquities. The report came out after a year-long study, and amongst the many shocking revelations was the observation that the ASI, as the custodian of antiquities, did not even maintain a database of the total number of antiquities in its possession. In the absence of centralized information, there was a significant risk of theft or loss of these antiquities. During inspections, the CAG found out that 131 antiquities were stolen from various monuments and sites and 37 antiquities from site museums, and that the efforts of the ASI to retrieve these items were completely ineffective.
हेरिटेज की अगर बात करें तो हमारे देश में कोई चिंता नहीं हेरिटेज की। इतना बड़ा विशाल देश है, महाभारत कहते हैं हम जिसे, इतिहास है। आप खजुराहो की बात करते हो, आप और भी बात करेंगे, लेकिन महाराष्ट्र में जो बड़े बड़े दुर्ग है, किले हैं, छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज हो, आप उनकी भी स्थिति जाके देखिए क्या है। ये जल दुर्ग जो समुद्र में किले बनाए हैं, लेकिन वहाँ ना हेरिटेज डिपार्टमेंट काम करता है ना हमको काम करने देता है। तो पूरा वो अपना धरोहर है, हेरिटेज है, खत्म हो रहा है, टूट रहा है।
तो सर ये सब स्मगल होकर दूसरे विदेशों में चला
जाता है, चल रहा है। तो सरकार क्या करती है तो सवाल रहेगा ना। हमारे पास ऐसी कौन सी एजेंसी है जो ये रोक सके? गृह मंत्रालय बोलेगा ये हेरिटेज डिपार्टमेंट का काम है, हेरिटेज बोलेगा ये और किसी का काम है, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ से पूरी इस प्रकार से जो ये है विदेश चला जा रहा है। बड़ी बड़ी मूर्तियाँ, बड़ी बड़ी तलवारें हमारे यहाँ से देश से चली, महाराष्ट्र से भी चली गई है। तो उसके ऊपर कुछ ना कुछ होना चाहिए।
Definitely, because India is a country which has very ancient history and which is known for its antiquities. And during the course of history, we were conquered or we were subjected to colonial rule by various forces. During that period, many things were looted. Even in the post-independent India, many idols from temples here, there have been stolen out. So it is going on. It is for the government to evolve a comprehensive policy to safeguard our heritage, to safeguard our symbols of heritage. And it is for the government to evolve a comprehensive policy to get back certain things which have been taken out of the country and kept available in other countries. Government should have a policy how to get back such things. So it is question of government's policy. Of course, there are some efforts on ad hoc basis. Sometimes some documents or some important materials related to our historic personalities or related to our history are brought back. But there should be a policy, a continuous policy to address this issue.
Stolen antiquities trade is a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide, and Interpol considers it as menacing as arms and drug trafficking. Smuggling of antiquities from India is theoretically an impossible task. Indian law stipulates that ancient art objects, including privately owned ones, have to be registered with an appropriate authority. Their export is banned, but smuggling still happens. According to experts, the route taken is from India to Hong Kong and from there to Europe and the US.
I've also been Minister of Culture for 3.5 years, and this has been an old problem that a large number of Indian heritage iconic items have surreptitiously either been smuggled out or find place in museums around the world. When I became a minister, I wrote to all our ambassadors asking them to have someone in the embassy tabulate, after going around the museums, the pieces which were lying in different museums, either officially procured or happened to get there. And we could have some bilateral exchanges for getting most of our pieces back. After this, some of our site museums, and at least when I was there were about 45 site museums, they did not have a very clued on CCTV system or security measures. Often I found big, huge pieces lying outside in the open. So there is no doubt that the government does not realize, successive governments have not realized the importance of safeguarding our heritage items, and enough resources are not allocated to the Culture Ministry. So irrespective of the color or political ideology of a government, I feel this concerns each one of us, that there should be adequate allocations made, arrangements made that more heritage is not lost.
More than 12 things belonging to Mahatma Gandhi has been auctioned in London. Government of India did not try even once to get all these memories of Mahatma Gandhi back to India. There is no policy of the government of India, this and earlier also, to protect the national heritage properly.
Experts say that the illicit trade in antiquities is more rampant than is noted in official figures. The reason cited are poor documentation and identification of all that is available in an ancient land like India. Added to that is the all too feeble attempts at safeguarding heritage. Outdated policies and ill-equipped investigative agencies have not been able to stem the loss. So with every passing instance, the heritage of India continues to drain out to foreign shores.
Now let's talk about rules and regulations. Despite the Art and Antiquities Act of 1972 in India, an illicit, illegal international market that's aided by smuggled goods continues to boom, with business from India itself that's estimated to run into millions of dollars every year. So what is it that ails the system? Why can India not look after its heritage? And why does it get stolen?
The temples of Khajuraho, for many, are the epitome of sensuousness carved in stone. For centuries, they have held visitors spellbound by their exquisite craftsmanship and breathtaking detail. The temples, built by the Chandelas between the 9th and the 10th centuries AD, were lost to civilization for centuries due to dense jungles surrounding them. In the mid-19th century, they were discovered by an English army captain. Of the 85 original temples, about 24 were found. A few years ago, while excavating, ASI discovered 48 artifacts from the Khajur Sagar Lake. Each time anyone digs up the earth in Khajuraho, some artifact or the other is discovered. The locals either use it as part of the foundation of their homes, or if it is pretty and an intact statue, they use it as an idol for worship. As the artifacts lay around all over the area, some of them make it to international market, fetching a multi-million-dollar price.
जो स्मारक या अवशेष पुरावशेष न ही केंद्र सरकार के द्वारा संरक्षित हैं, न ही राज्य सरकार के द्वारा संरक्षित हैं, ऐसे स्मारकों की सुरक्षा और संरक्षण के लिए केंद्र सरकार का नेशनल मिशन फॉर मॉन्यूमेंट एंड एंटीक्विटीज़ चल रहा है, जिसके तहत इंटेक और दूसरी संस्थाओं के द्वारा डॉक्यूमेंटेशन का काम करवाया जा रहा है। उसमें नेशनल इंपॉर्टेंस की जितनी भी चीज़ें पाई जाती हैं, उनके संरक्षण के लिए कार्रवाई की जा रही है।
So as we know that once there were 85 temples, now from 85 only 22 temples remain here, and the rest of temple were converted as a mounds or the ruins of the temple. And after some time, the local people started to make some buildings around those ruins. So now when they're digging those ruins, so we got some pieces, and they collected those pieces, and now they are worshipping these pieces like the god. And they don't know it is a goddess or it is an apsara or whatever, but they believe that it's a god or goddesses. So they worship like that. So a kind of erosion is coming. And I'm watching from last 10-15 years, the local administration and archaeology is not doing well about in this field.
According to the Daphna Act, any artifacts found underneath the earth belong to the state government. But since most states have no establishment protecting such wealth of historical importance, the ASI is usually unable to protect art of historical and cultural value, leaving it open to smugglers and illicit trade.
So while smuggling and theft are big contributors to the loss of heritage, colonialism and spoils of war were, and still sometimes, are the two biggest contributors to this depletion. In the 19th and 20th century in particular, colonial masters rid their colonies of immense historical wealth. Antiques that today grace museums far from their land of origin, and there is a constant debate now between nations on whether previously looted heirloom and antiques should be returned.
War, colonialism and duplicity stripped thousands of priceless historical artifacts from one land to another. As colonialism receded or the fortunes of the war created new victors, countries began demanding the return of their national heritage. Here are some of the most hotly contested ones.
Our heritage items are abroad. We are not alone. There are many countries in the world which during the colonial period lost their heritage to the imperial powers, and under UNESCO for a long time efforts are being made to retrieve these, and I think both bilaterally and through UNESCO we should continue these efforts, but not be under any illusion that it's going to be as easy for us to rob them of their treasures as it was for them to rob us of our treasures. Times have changed.
For years, the Egyptian government demanded the return of a set of ancient fresco fragments housed at Paris's Louvre Museum. The Louvre bought the fragments despite knowing that they were taken from a tomb in Egypt's storied Valley of the Kings in the 1980s, a prime spot for grave robbers. Egypt has a top priority policy of reclaiming ancient art taken from its country. During a 1912 Egyptian excavation, German archaeologist Ludwig Borchardt discovered the bust of Nefertiti, a 14th century BC Egyptian queen. Berlin has proudly displayed the item since 1923. The Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities has repeatedly asked Germany to give the bust back. Egypt is exhaustive in its attempt to recover stolen artifacts. Few items are more prized than the mummified remains of the ancient pharaohs, and Egypt has tried for years to recoup what is likely the 3,000-year-old body of Pharaoh Ramses I from North American Museum. In 1999, Atlanta's Michael Carlos Museum received the mummy and used carbon dating and CT scans to place the mummy to the era of Ramses I. Upon confirmation, they offered to return the body to Egypt, where it is now housed at the Luxor Museum. The Elgin marbles received their name from the British lord who craftily spirited them away from Greece to Britain in 1801. The British government purchased the marbles from him in 1816. They have been housed at the British Museum ever since. Calls to return the Elgin marbles to Greece have fallen on deaf ears. The Metropolitan Museum of Art in the US acquired the 2,500-year-old Euphroneus crater, an ornate bowl used to combine water with wine. The museum faced calls from Italy to return the artifact, originally discovered outside Rome. After several years of negotiation, the Met returned the crater to Italy in 2008 in exchange for the rights to display several comparable artifacts on loan. When it comes to India, the most emotive claim is that of the Kohinoor diamond. It may have once been the monstrous 793 carats, but now is a mere 109 carat chunk that became a part of the coronation crown of Queen Elizabeth. It was once the property of Mughal emperors of India before Nadir Shah carried it off to Iran. The Kohinoor then went to Afghans before Maharaja Ranjit Singh got it back, but the British took the diamond after they annexed Punjab and claimed it as their own.
If we can prove that it was ours at one place, it can be, we can make a claim for it. But the question is, will we get it back? Now that is a very complicated situation, because I think the people who own it often say that we look after it better than you would. And so it is universal asset, universal heritage. So why should not we look after universal heritage? So whose heritage is it? We claim it's our forefathers. Why can't someone else say it's our forefathers also? I mean, there is a certain what we call universal heritage. So why would we seem to have a chauvinistic right over something that could in fact should be a much more universal, a much more broad-based ownership.
Recently, Yale University in Peru ended a 100-year bitter dispute when the university agreed to return 40,000 artifacts originally taken from the Machu Picchu site in the Andes in the early 1900s. In 2008, Peru filed a lawsuit against Yale to return the pieces, and Peru's president sent President Obama a letter seeking his assistance in 2010. When finally they were returned, an exhibit of the artifacts was opened to the public in April 2011 at the government palace in Lima. In January this year, the US returned 3 rare antiques that had been stolen in India and were recovered by US customs officials after a worldwide search for them. One of the artifacts, a 158 kg sandstone sculpture called Vishnu and Lakshmi, dates to the 11th or the 12th century and was number 6 on Interpol's list of top 10 most wanted stolen artifacts. The sculpture and 2 others, a 272 kg piece called Vishnu and Parvati and the idol of a bodhisattva, was stolen from a temple in Rajasthan in 2009. The US Customs had put the value of the stolen artifacts at about 1.5 million USD. This was one of the rare successes that India has had in getting back its stolen artifacts.
Well, leaving nationalistic jingoism aside, why is it so important to get heritage back? Why does the lady with the parrot need to come back to India, particularly when no one missed her departure in the first place? Well, heritage needs preservation, and that also means looking after what is already there. And it's only then we'll past stay alive and its future will be secured. Thanks so much for watching this special presentation.